So yeah, there are some things to work out for sure. Uh, I know that I'm thinking about the grade book. Does anybody want to, you don't have to, but does anybody want to just contribute about as far as what they thought about the sync from last year? There was a survey, and I'll kind of talk about it in a big way, but does anybody have a personal thing? You can just turn off your mic and say something.
I I teach in middle school health and PE, so I have 12 classes. So being part of that was so convenient because to do that, to not have to do the double entry, to just be able to go in through Schoology, do the assignments, do the grades, and then just hit the sync button was so convenient, and it saved so much time. I honestly didn't run into too many issues throughout, except, and I worked with Dan come like later on in the year, as far as like when certain grades weren't syncing exactly, and we had to go in and add in the assignment, put a score, and then delete it, and then like it refreshed everything for whatever reason. I had to do that twice last year. So I think that wasn't as big of a hassle. It was kind of like, whoa, what's going on? Why isn't this grade showing up? And I only noticed it because it was so drastic. It went from like, it was an A to an F. And I was like, wait a second, this isn't right. But once we did that little trick, it helped. So that was the only snag that I experienced with it. And I was so, I really felt it was beneficial being in this pilot group because it did save so much time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
My experience,
Good, Mike.
being at the high school with health and phys ed, obviously our health classes, all of our work is being done on Schoology, right? So kids are submitting work and stuff like that there. But with phys ed, we have the ability of kind of just going right into Synergy and putting the grades in. So I tried at different mark periods to kind of put my phys ed grades into Schoology and have them sync over. And then also tried without doing it. I'll be honest, I feel like us having two systems is redundant, right? To the point where it makes more work for everybody. My experience as far as the syncing goes, I didn't really have many issues with that. It was just another thing of like, we have to learn another program and kind of keep up on both things. So that was the only troublesome part. I know a bunch of my colleagues up at Freedom, we jumped in and kind of got them in the sync program as the year went on, and it went pretty smooth. I was honestly surprised that we were doing another pilot year of it. I thought we would kind of be ready to go from at least my experiences and with it. But I think overall, I think the district needs to identify, hey, are we just going to move to one LMS program, right, and just do everything right within Synergy, right? And I think that would probably be the best, for us to try to have that goal, and maybe we do. I don't know. But as far as the syncing goes, I thought it was pretty smooth once you got the hang of how to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, like I hear you on a couple of things there, but I think, and I don't know if anybody else, you can chime in too. I think overall, the pilot group, there was a positive feeling about the sync. You all like had a bit of background in this. Like, I'm not going to say everybody did, but for the most part, we were working with some teachers who really, knew the systems, and Synergy was new. So that was some, like, a little bit of an unknown for us. And, Synergy does continue to have some issues. I do know that during that survey, and I didn't really send out results as much. Basically, overall, a lot of people said that we should just push it out. However, because of some of the bugs where averages in Synergy were not correct, and you'd have to really go there to see it. That was something that AMG, ISD, we discussed all of that. We also told them that you thought it was a good idea to move forward. However, they did not feel comfortable with that, with the bugs. So they're working with Synergy, and there's a fix in the works. And hopefully with this pilot, we're going to see once they put that in. I don't know if they've implemented it. I'm going to check on that. Hopefully that will go away. And then if that does, that should pave the way for more people to use it. This year we thought, okay, they said, well, continue the pilot. Let everybody who used it before, they should be able to use it again for sure. And we asked, hey, can we just bring more people on? And they said, absolutely. Bring more people on, continue to bring on a gradual thing. That way there'll be a whole lot of people who know it. That way, when it's installed for everybody, there will be more people to assist with that. So fingers crossed that is going to be the path. Go ahead, Serena.
I know like my biggest issue last year was that because Synergy didn't recognize rotations, that like you had to kind of like finagle the dates. Is that still going to be an issue this year?
I don't know. I feel like that was probably, in my opinion, the worst part about this. You having rotations that it would span, and maybe Dan can talk to that, but that you had to put your grades in like the second, like, can you explain that?
It's so far, it's still, we have to do that if you teach rotations or trimesters, which would be for all the schools except for Brockle. We'll have teachers in that boat who are syncing. So yeah, it was for rotations period 2 and 5. And for trimesters, every trimester has to be post dated to the second marking period. It like whatever marking period they're going to receive their report card in, that's the marking period that any assignments that are going to be synced to Synergy. So any achievement grades would have to be dated in that latter marking period. So I think Lauren Morrow was choosing to just do the first day of the latter marking period for I think for every assignment. But maybe you or someone was, I don't remember who exactly was. No, maybe it was Jeffrey. I think changing like the times by 1 minute so that they still came in order. So like putting that post date, but then doing the times so that his assignments would still show up in the order that he gave them. But yeah, that's a big problem because it's confusing if parents look at dates for assignments in Schoology and they don't match up in the slightest with when they were actually given or due.
And I did try at one point, like changing the date in Schoology, syncing it, and then rechanging the date in Synergy once it was synced to the correct date. And that went all wonky too. So I did try that as well. I think at one of the trainings, and it didn't work well.
Yeah, I know. We were trying that with Brian Brzezinski. I thought we had figured one out where it did work. But then like Yvonne and I, we were talking and we're like, that's just such a mess. Why would we even recommend like going in post dating, then changing them back in the other, like it's just a mess. But I mean, like what did Marie tell us? That's not an easy problem to solve. So it's brought up with Synergy. But it's something that we know there's a solution and they're working on it. We don't there might not be a solution for that.
Right. I mean, yeah. So I think that's probably the most ridiculous part about this is that it isn't accurate. Like to me, I mean, whatever, you're doing it because you don't want to double enter and we're supporting you in that. But that is something. I did see that the marking periods are set up a little bit differently, but I think it has to do, I don't know if they figured out something. When I was installing the app, I was looking at all the marking periods, and I'm not going to promise that it's solving anything, but that was my intuition was we need to change the way the marking periods are. But yeah, we've definitely been talking to them about it. Anybody else want to contribute? And by the way, if you want to chat, put it in the chat. I see a number of people have done that already.
I just had 2 questions.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you say that everybody who got in eventually to the pilot and where it could sync is still going to be in? Because the rest of my health PE teachers got added in later.
Yes.
So are they still going to have that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then,
so everybody, we have a list of everybody because we had to enroll in your classes. So
right.
we have all from last year. So I have a list of all the teachers, and this is how the Schoology group, this is from last year. But this was a way I was keeping track of who was in it. I went and did your courses first because you're coming to this today. And then I'm going to be working on the high school courses and helping with middle school as well.
Okay, second question. I know I only saw your email last night. I just happened to go on email. So I signed up last night late. So maybe you didn't get, but did you say you added the Sys Connect app?
Yes.
I went into the Schoology course and I didn't see it in there.
Okay. If you could email me the address of the course, like go to the URL and just shoot me an email with whatever course that is. If I got yours, but
I'll check again. I didn't click through all of them, but I just clicked through a couple and I didn't see the Sys Connect. So I'll just shoot you an email with that. So
yeah, let me know. I worked maybe about 3 hours last night on getting it in, but I'm not saying I'm like flawless. That is the other part, is when we're keeping this as a pilot, we are keeping it as a pilot. Mm-hmm. So if I didn't get it, I'll get it today.
No problem. No worries.
Anybody sees courses, and high school, I didn't do your second semester stuff. But if anybody sees a course that they don't have the app installed, shoot me an email, give me the URL of your course so I can go right to it, and then I will add it, or one of us will add it. So, okay. Yeah, and God bless you guys with all of those courses. I literally had to copy the page sometimes, because when you would refresh the page, it would change what courses were on the. Okay. So everything is the same. Nothing is really changing as far as, about Schoology. You're putting your ASF, EGM, ASF, RES in there. It's not counting toward anything. You can put your summative in there, like a Schoology quiz. The formatives are all over in Schoology. Synergy is just that achievement grade. This is still true. 1 year later. Synergy vibes. And from Crystal, what she was saying, I think one day we might get what we want. So yeah, these are the basic steps. The one thing I want to point out is in that course, there's a checklist. And if you want to look at that, and I'm not going to go through all the steps. We may have Dan if he wants to. Let's see. It didn't work there. Oh, Google Lens kind of got in the way. Okay. Oh, there it is. Yeah, that's like a checklist. That's pretty much kind of like boom, 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 boom. Where you think about what you're doing. Are you using weighted grades, total points? And then so you configure your Well, I did B, so I apologize. That I did that. Well, I installed it. You would configure your synergy. If you're not going to use weighted, you don't really need to do much. If you do use the weighted grades, you got to go in and put the weights. Then you would go over, and maybe Dan, maybe you want to demo that. I'll give you some time to get that set up.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So you want me to go through setting up
Sure.
the Synergy Gradebook and then the Schoology Gradebook and then configuring the SIS Connect application?
Sure.
All right, 1 second. Let me grab.
Stop sharing.
Okay.
So you probably recall how to do this, but you're here. And you're welcome to watch Dan. Dan's going to be teaching German this year, so he's going to be showing you an authentic course. And you can also look at the checklist there that I have, and it's pretty much, I'm going to edit it as we go along if he shows me something new.
Okay, so I'm just gonna start with my first course, and bear with me because I just set up my courses in Schoology, but I haven't been in Synergy yet.
Okay.
Set up the Gradebook, so it should be easy because I do total points. So let me back up. I'm at the landing page. I'm going in the first course, and I'm going to go to Gradebook setup. And like I said, I'm using total points, so I'm not changing anything here. If you want to weight your categories, which I would never recommend, I always recommend doing one summative category, probably named achievement, and then naming your summative assessments with the different categories and just awarding them the number of points that makes sense, instead of in lieu of weighting them. So if you want your quizzes to be far less than your tests, you might weight or contribute 100 points to tests and then 10 points to quizzes. It's just the easiest way to set up your gradebook, and it's the easiest way to sync. But what you don't get is the filtering part in Schoology. So I know, like Shannon, you guys like to weight those categories because you can filter and look at the different assignments. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I feel like I remember that. But
no, we use total points.
Okay. All right. Sorry. So in any case, yeah, the only thing you lose is the filtering in Schoology and Synergy. But we have so few summative assessments in a marking period, relatively speaking, like maybe 4 to 10, that filtering really isn't a huge benefit. So anyway, long story short, I recommend doing total points. It just makes everything easier. So I'm leaving that the same. I don't need to copy anything to my classes because I'm not changing anything. So essentially, this is all set up for me. Correct me if I'm wrong, Yvonne.
No, you're right. I mean, the one thing I will ask you at this point is sometimes people so I'm like looking ahead as I'm looking at your gradebook, thinking about if you want to use all of these categories or the categories that apply to you, like you're going to use classwork or you're going to use tests, right? And then you're going to have that in Schoology. That's one route.
Yeah.
Then the other route is perhaps using one category here, map to one category. And I'm just kind of bringing that up so that you may talk about that.
Yeah, and exactly. So that's what I'm going to do in Schoology. And I was recommending, if you just use achievement, to map it over to test, because there's no other category that's more universal. A test can be synonymous with an assessment. So like that's more universal name than calling them all quiz, because you probably remember you can only map over one category in Schoology to one category in Synergy. I can't map over my achievement category in Schoology to multiple categories in Synergy. It doesn't work like that. We asked if they would put an achievement category in Synergy, but it doesn't look like they did. They said that they're open to that, but they probably either didn't get to it or decided that they weren't going to do it. I don't know. Maybe it got vetoed. So yeah, I'll show you. I'll map it over to test, because I think that makes the most sense. Unless like, I think art teachers, sometimes they were mapping it over to projects because their classes were 30 days and consisted of 3 or 4 or 5 projects or something like that. So if it makes more sense to you to map it over to projects because that's what your summative assessments are, then that's what I would do. Like in phys ed, it might be laboratories because you might call, you know, the
Science.
physical things that they do labs. I'm not sure if I got that right with Becky or Shannon.
Yeah, I think you and I met and we figured out like we were gonna do like achievement in health was something, achievement in PE was something, and then I think we did call it like achievement in PE like lab because it was like hands-on stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we figured that out.
Yeah, so you know, whatever makes sense for you. So I'm just gonna pick any class since the grade book is set up for me in Synergy because I'm using total points. So I'll go into the first 8th grade course and click on the Schoology SIS Connect app. So if you see that in one of your courses, like Shannon saw that you didn't have it in one of them, check some of the other ones and you'll probably find it in another one. It's probably just maybe one or a couple that are missed because phys ed teachers have so many. And I'm with you guys this year, Becky and Shannon. I have full schedule, 6 classes every day. So I'm gonna hop over to configuration up here at the top. And I don't think I'm gonna schedule a sync because there was problems with some teachers, and we found that the likely cause was column assignments and the lack of a date. And it even happened in assignments that were not column assignments, but that were not dated. But one teacher had also scheduled a sync, so that kind of threw up a red flag for me. I'm not going to schedule a sync, but if you did schedule a sync and that worked for you, you know, that's you can do that, but I'm not going to do that, at least for the first semester.
The one thing I'll interject here is that I would not use the columns in the gradebook.
Do not
like you just mentioned it. Like that's something that people were used to. I think at the middle school level, especially, it's just, you know, it's the way you were doing things. It is a little bit more difficult. I mean, you can give things a date in bulk edit. That does, and I'll just mention if you have, you know, self-paced learning and you set up, you know, things where, you know, the completion rules, that also sometimes throws a wrench into it because you need to give dates to it. And if it's self-completion, like, you know, maybe you would give the last day of the marking period or something like that, or whatever your expectation is. That was an issue with eSchool as well when we were syncing with it. But yeah, that continues to be something. But good points.
Yeah, I would 100% not use columns unless it's, I don't know why you would use them for formatives, but you don't use them. Several teachers at the end of the year, it was quite a few teachers, had to recreate assignments and rescore them because they just would not sync, or they manually put in the assignment in Synergy and just did the grades themselves. But so that was because of assignments. So make sure assignments have dates because you can create them and not give a date, and don't use column assignments if I was you. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead.
Can I ask you a question? What does it mean to use columns?
Do you want to answer that?
Sorry to ask this question, but I really don't understand what you mean by it.
It's just a way of assigning a placeholder for a grade in your grade book without whatever it was showing up in your materials page. So if I'm in I'm not going to go there now. I'm not going to navigate away from here. But if I was in my grade book, I could add a column and I could create, you know, give it a title. It was a test, but I gave it on paper and I don't feel the need to have it show up as an assignment in my materials page. I just want to have a grade book or a grade column for it. So you can do that, and teachers do that. We're doing that because we weren't syncing, and we weren't, you know, since, I don't know, how long was it? 3, 4, or 5 years. We were just giving the grade in eSchool, and we weren't syncing at all. So we could use columns and it didn't affect anything. But,
if you built it as an assignment, even though it's a test on paper, and then when that assignment is done, you enter the grades.
yeah,
Then okay, because
what you should do.
that's what we have been doing.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Yeah. And
Okay, understood. It didn't make sense to me because I built it as an assignment, even though there are no submissions. I just
Right.
entered the grades, but I didn't understand what it means to create the column. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just do that. Do what you continue doing. A lot of teachers have no idea that there are a thing called columns. I didn't even know that there was a thing called columns until the beginning of last school year because I didn't use them. So just continue creating an assignment. Make sure you give it a date and score it, even if it's a paper test or anything like that.
All right. Thank you.
and the good thing about this sync is that you can sync things that are not published.
Yes. Okay.
So that other issue that, you know, why you wouldn't want them to see it, you don't have to have it published.
Got it.
So
Thanks.
we're, yep, you're good. Keep doing what you were doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I have a question quick.
Mhm.
I see your box, it says create new Schoology category, achievement, the engagement, responsibility, and the formative. I don't have that.
Well, you have to. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. I skipped this. I skipped the grade setup part.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Rewind. Perfect. So,
Okay.
yeah, we want to go to grade setup and set up the categories first. Thank you for pointing that out.
You can use that create category to create it right there, but
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. So I went in and I'm doing it the streamlined, in my opinion, most or easiest way. So achievement, I have engagement, responsibility, formative. Some teachers just keep the engagement and responsibility assignments in their formative category. They don't even create these. So by all means, if you prefer to just have achievement and formative, that's great too. I just kind of want to separate these categories because it's what I was used to doing 2 years ago. Maybe that's the only reason why. I'm not sure. But
I have a question there, Dan. You have weight there,
I do.
and it's not weighting in Synergy.
Yeah. So the reason I do that is because
I understand why you would do that. Did that work last year?
Yeah, most of the teachers I worked with had the achievement weighted at 100%, and everything synced over like normal, like perfectly fine. So, and
I
That's
don't think mine did.
who's that? Yes.
Crystal.
Yeah, I don't think mine did.
Okay.
Yeah,
and,
I'm
and for
yeah,
the
I'm gonna put a
engagement and
caution on
responsibility.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be interested. I haven't tried that. If anybody did that, okay, Leah, you did it. Okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, it just takes out the probability of error and accidentally not, putting I'm not even going to say that, but like accidentally giving a score to one of these formative assessments and it contributing because I didn't limit this to 100% achievement. If I call this total points, I accidentally leave a score for one of these, and then it skews my grade in Schoology.
Yep.
And then I have to go through bulk edit, and I have to figure out which one it was. And theoretically, and you know what I'll do, Yvonne? You know what I'll do? I'm gonna make sure at least one, maybe two of my courses I do this way, and I zero out at all the formatives, and I'll see if there's a difference this year. So
Dan, if you,
I mean, so I understand why you would do that, like totally, like because then that's not contributing to the grade in Schoology.
Yeah.
It does show up as a grade, though, if you don't zero it out in every assignment for the student.
Mm-hmm.
That is, like, per Dr. Leeson, what I had to go through with her that first summer. She did not want those ASFs showing any type of grade, like, in the student grade area.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we did that. Even if you, like, Lori Martin and I were, like, really trying to figure this out to achieve what she wanted. That's why those instructions were given out.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick, I thought that, because Dan, I set mine up the same way you do with yours. I have like summative, formative, then the 2 engagement or the ASF grades. But then in bulk edit, we were told from Maureen when she came into that meeting with us that anything that was formative had to have a weight of 0, anything summative had to have the weight of 1.0 in our grade book, so that the calculations in the sinks would work the way that they wanted downtown. Is that accurate with what I'm saying, with how we done it?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I do agree, though, doing it like the way you're doing with weighting categories, giving the achievement grade 100%, that takes away us having to go into bulk edit and making more and more changes all the time. It's a much more streamlined way that you're doing it.
Yeah.
But that was not what she was saying to us at all. And, you know, I just want to make sure, because when I go back to my department, I want to make sure that I'm telling the right stuff as I'm taking these notes with everybody, so that we're doing it all the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna put a caution out there. Like, I understand that people. So this is good that we're having this conversation.
For sure.
That the reason I'm like, whoa, is because this system says weighting. Synergy doesn't say that it's weighting. And I know that behind the scenes, like, the kid, do they care about that? No. I don't know. Like, I don't know if it communicates like eSchool did. It communicated. You would not be able to do this with eSchool. And that's why I think we approached it the eSchool way, because it kept checking every time it would sync. And if it wasn't the same, we would have an issue. It sounds like it doesn't check it if they're set up the same weighted or total points.
I
Yeah.
had no issues with syncing, and I did exactly what Dan
Okay.
did. When I created an assignment in Schoology, I still had to change it to a weight of 0, but it was kind of like, if I accidentally forgot to do
Right.
that, it
Right.
didn't sync anything, like nothing showed up as an actual grade.
Okay.
But I had all of my achievement grades synced over
all work.
perfectly into Synergy. I had no issues, and I did exactly what he did.
Okay.
I'm going to, so what I'll do, not right now, but I'm going to do a test where I'm going to do the category that I'm going to sync to 100% so that they are both weighted. Then I'll do one just total points like I was going to and weighted here. And then I'll do one with just total points and this just being total points. And I'll see if, anything comes up where if there's a glitch, maybe something like that was causing a glitch. I don't think that was it, but yeah, I'll test that this year. So at least for sure the first semester, and see if anything comes up.
So Dan, when you did it this way, and Leah, you as well, did you not have to go into bulk edit and change the factor for each of the assessment types?
So,
Oh.
so there is a difference of the way we're seeing things, and we're not like. So I'm going to tell you what I think is going on. When I hide the overall grade in student grade report and hide the grading period grades in student grade report, and I go in and I view as a student and I go to my grade book, I don't see a percentage score for any of these categories. So if I weight it like this and I go into bulk edit and I leave my formative assessments weighted at 1 and don't put them at 0, what Dr. Leeson wants is for the students not to see an average for their formative assessments at all. And if I hide the grade report in the overall grade and the grading period, then they won't see a percentage score for those categories. So theoretically, in my mind, I shouldn't have to adjust them to 0 because the problem is being alleviated. But Laura and Yvonne found somewhere where students were seeing a percentage, whether they zeroed them out or left them at 1. So I don't like, I can't answer that. I mean, that's my answer.
So the whole having to put a factor on is a pain in the butt. The only reason we were suggesting that was because Dr. Leeson said to Lori Martin and I do not want the student to see any average for the ASF. Now, she was talking about ASF, and it sounds like, Mike, she may have talked to you and your department, or the EGM. Like, I was dealing with that because it's literally not a score. It's just they're putting 1, 2, 3. It doesn't average. That's what I was talking about. That's where we were directing that. Now I see, ASF and RGM, or they're in our grade book because it's a grade book.
Right.
Right. And you're zeroing out. So it definitely helps if you wait and you put those at 0. That shouldn't contribute to any kind of grade as far as an overall average. So the appeal of doing it this way is good. Like, I think this is great if it works.
Yeah.
It's the way that if it doesn't communicate that the 2 grade books are set up differently, but it still works. Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah. And
I did still change the weight to 0 when I made assignments. I didn't do bulk edit. I just when I added an assignment, I changed the weight to 0. So I guess, yes, I still had to do that step. But if I forgot to do that step, then at least it wasn't affecting.
It's so easy to not do that. Like, I was like testing it and I was forgetting to not do it. Right. I totally get it. And again, I don't know where we are with that. Like, Mike, I'm going to chat with you a little later, like, next week or whatever, whenever I see you, to sort of hear a little bit more about what Dr. Leeson said, because I haven't heard anything from her since then.
It was that first year at the beginning of the year when we had the rollout of what the ASF grades are going to be.
Yeah.
And I set the grade book, and it was just that anything that was not a summative or achievement grade, it had to have a factor of 0.
Oh, okay.
So we were going in and changing everything to be a factor of 0. And what I would honestly do, it's phys ed, so we would just kind of put our weekly grades in. I would go to bulk edit, and everything that was counting toward their grade, it was a factor of 1.0. But in health classes, if it was just a normal class assignment, like a formative thing, they all had the factor of 0. And then the summative stuff had the factors of 1.0. So I was always in the bulk edit of changing it that way, because that's, like I said, that's just what we were told. If there's an easier way where we don't have to do this, by all means, I would love to pass that on and make it easier for everybody. But I just want to make sure that I'm not doing something wrong, and then we're gonna have to have more headaches as we're trying to work through the sync problem. I don't want to cause anything else. So
yeah,
right, yeah. So I think that I think you should proceed the way that you feel best with that, as far as what we've been told. This is still a pilot, and I think we should check in.
For those of you that did it this way, were you only using one category of achievement and weighting it at 100%, or did you have other categories that you were using?
Yeah, Shannon, I did so I had only a summative assessments that would transfer over. I did by total points. So, a test or quiz would be worth a different value to it that way. But anything that was summative was a 1.0 factor to it. And so, like I said, I kind of weighted my grades based on the assignment itself. And I had no problems as far as that portion goes with syncing those things over.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we'll do some testing and we'll table this for now, and we'll really look into what happens if you don't factor it to 0 in your weighting. But right now, I think the what do I say? Not instructions, but we factor formatives to 0 for the time being. That's what the directive is. So, but in any case, so I've hidden these in all my courses. And when you copy over your grade setup to your other courses, you still have to go into each course and check both of these visibility settings. Okay, so now I'll go back to the SIS Connect app, into configuration. And like I said, I'm going to map over achievement to test because that makes the most sense for me. But if projects makes more sense for your course, then by all means. What you cannot do is map over achievement to multiple synergy categories. I can only map this over once. So if you do multiple categories, whether they're total points or weighted, then you would, and some teachers wanted to do that. They wanted to map over test to test and project to project and quiz to quiz. So they created multiple categories. So if you want to do it that way, you can do that. I think this is the easiest way. So this is the way I'll choose to do it. And then I'll click Save Configuration. And that's it until I create assignments, and I can sync those assignments before I score them, and then score them and resync. Until I do that, this course is done. So everything's been configured. I can double check, go to configuration, and make sure that it is. There were some teachers where things weren't syncing at all, and they got to the end of the marking period, and it was just that the category wasn't mapped over. So if you want to double check that it is, you can do that.
Or sometimes it didn't save.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though you click save.
Yeah. So
Dan, I have a question. Did you ever try doing like the test to test, the project to project, the writing to writing, and see if there was any discrepancies between that way versus the achievement way?
No, I mean, all I can say is that there were middle school teachers who were doing it both ways, and there weren't additional problems for one or the other. Okay. That, so it worked both ways. I mean, the problems were the what we call the synergy glitch with the gradebook not reflecting the Schoology gradebook and needing to add that extra assignment. That was one of the major problems. And then some of the other problems were just little things that needed to be cleaned up in the Schoology gradebook if the teacher wanted it to match the synergy gradebook. So
Crystal, I used those different categories, but it wasn't like test to test. It was like test to health achievement. Like I made up the name. Dan and I worked on the naming the different things, and we had different categories going in. I liked it because like as I'm assigning things and seeing in the grade book, like, oh, that's a health achievement as opposed to a PE achievement, or that's a, so I use those instead of just one, achievement category. And I didn't see any problems with it.
What about parents or students? Do they have any questions? Did they like one versus the, okay.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I'll pick it up from there. One thing that you may want to keep in mind, and this came about when I was sitting with people who were coming on later, like Mike alluded to. I sat with a lot of teachers, and so it was after the year started. So here we're at the beginning of the year. Let me see, I'm getting a notification there. Okay, so as you remember, when you create those assignments, there's that sync to SIS checkbox now when your app is installed. And then the unpublished, even if you do leave it unpublished, it will still sync over. So that was different from that previous sync that we had. This next piece is what I talked about with some of the teachers. I sat down with a couple of teachers during the year, and when I got to this part, they said, nah, I don't want to do the sync. And it was because what they had already done. And so semester 1, marking period 1, teacher already has stuff in Synergy, but they also copied like their entire course in Schoology from last year with all the assignments. Of course, they need to go in and change the date and all of that. But they already had a ton of graded items copied in from a previous semester. I told them about, well, there's that sync to SIS, and here I'm in bulk edit. One of the things, so basically, in a nutshell, if you don't want it to sync and you have it mapped to a category that will sync, like it says achievement, like Dan had there, you don't want it to sync over, you'd have to go to the sync to SIS and uncheck that. That's one way to go about it. But one of the teachers said to me, you know, if I would have known this, I wouldn't have copied my entire course over into my Schoology. I would just copy maybe a week at a time or 2 weeks. And that way, if she wanted to go in there, she, you know, there's all kinds of ways of doing that, but that was her workflow. It felt like it was a little bit too much at that time. So, you know, and that's kind of the bottom thing there. You may want to copy it in piecemeal if you feel like that might be an issue. Right, Leah, exactly. If it's not a category that's mapped, it won't sync over. So, you know, I think at that point, the teacher had set stuff up to an extent that she felt like it was just a little bit too much. So I'm going to revisit that with her and see if I can get her on board this year because she really wanted to do it.
Again, can I ask a question on that?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Stop.
Like, if you do copy the stuff over, like not everything, but you copy a week or 2 at a time.
Yeah.
It doesn't sync automatically. Like if you take 10 minutes later and you go in and you uncheck the sync desist thing, you know, and bulk edit or whatever method you use to do that, that's not going to sync over then. Is that correct?
If it's not mapped at all, like you don't give it a category,
because it doesn't have a category, like it doesn't keep the category when you copy it over from the previous year. I think it zeroes it out. So as long as that's not there, it's not going to sync.
Right. As long as you don't set it up with a category, you're pretty much okay. She had, she went in and like did all of that work, and that's all. It's just kind of like a keep this in mind kind of thing.
No, real quick, I may cut you off, but Lisa, you brought up a good point. When we copy from one course to another, right, or we copy assignments over from one course to another, why is it that the attachments will never sync over if it's a Google Drive assignment? Like, it is the absolute most frustrating thing that we have to go in for every single course and then reattach that same Google Drive assignment. Is there any way to override that, or any way to fix that?
No.
That fixed?
That is very frustrating.
Not with the tool as it stands today.
Use Cami. You switch to Cami.
Yeah, you could use Cami. It's not a deep linking LTI like PlayPosit was. Like you could then, if you had a PlayPosit video and you set the link, you would be able to copy it and you wouldn't have to reattach it. But that Google Drive assignment, they have not changed that. They've actually told us to go to a different one that has less capability than the one that we use now, which is a drag. But I agree, it's a pain in the butt. It's a total pain in the butt. But yeah, so you do have to revisit it if it is one of those anyway. Yeah, so syncing grades, Dan was right in there with, you're in the configuration area. You can do it from here. If you go to the SIS Connect app, you would be able to do it there, sync changes, or from the gradebook area. Whereas if I go to, let's go in, just going to go to a gradebook. Yeah, does this have it in? Yeah, this has it in. Yeah, it's actually spinning. I don't think I had configured this one yet. So a lot of people may do it right here. And this little clipboard here, if you clip on that, which you probably have already done a million times, that gives you like your status area. Like, hey, what's going on? Did it sync over? So those two areas are good. Did anybody have anything like weird come up about the statuses, like successful, in progress, failed? These seemed like pretty explanatory. The one thing I wanted to update on, and Dan has definitely pointed this out, was when you use those exception codes in Schoology, like excused, okay, missing, it does give them a 0, okay, which will come over. Incomplete, right, Dan, does not give them a 0 anymore. Is that correct? Like, does everybody?
Yep. And were you going to mention with the missing, you don't want to check in grade setup to change that so that it, like in Schoology in the gradebook setup, you can check for missing assignments for them not to contribute a 0 or count as a 0. And you don't want to check that because it will still sync over as a 0. So disable automatic scoring. You don't want to check that if you're syncing.
Right.
Because it'll mess up the.
This is like a new thing. It might be a year there that it's been there, but yeah, if you click that, it won't give them the 0.
Yeah, Schoology, but it will still sync over as a 0.
Yeah, yeah. So we don't really recommend that collected, absent, or late. And that's an old picture. Like I had the comparison. That's the way it was before. I think the incomplete, it wouldn't give them a 0. Okay, so this is an old picture. Okay, but just kind of keep that in mind. Those first 3, are pretty. And from what I understand, those last 3 were the last ones that they added. So this didn't make it into the integration. So again, do your Schoology in, grading in Schoology, sync to Synergy. I know some of you have had to clean up stuff in Synergy, and that's sort of being part of the pilot. We can't use any other factor other than 1. Like you can't factor an assignment 2 in Schoology and it come over. Midterms and final do not sync over. So that's another thought. If you do like a final exam, you probably want to mark that as a midterm final, so it's not counted in the Schoology gradebook. Just if you want to keep it clean. You have to delete things in pretty much each place. If you want to get rid of it in Schoology, but you synced it already, you have to delete it in Synergy. Give dates like we were talking about earlier, and the grading columns do not sync correctly. It's I know it's sort of a different way of doing it, those of you who were using that, but and this is the same stuff from before. So make sure that you always resync if you make changes in Schoology. and comments should be coming over. So the other one thing I wanted to mention is if you use grading groups or you individualize an assignment, I know Dan and I were working on this, and Dan came back with that so maybe one child, you know, you only want to give the assignment to one child, but you still want it to sync. You can do that. You assign it to the student, then you give them the grade, you sync it, you go over to the assignment in Synergy. So you do have to visit Synergy, advanced settings, and then show only when scored. You need to turn that on. So it only shows if you've scored it, which was for that original kid. So I don't know if did anybody use that at all? Like individual assignments
I
that's
did.
over? Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it worked. It was just annoying.
Yeah, that is annoying. It is very annoying. It's nice that we have that, but it's still annoying. So
yeah.
Anybody else? I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah. Same deal. Yeah.
You did.
You just have to double check. It just creates a whole mess in Synergy, but it does what it's supposed to. Yeah.
Yeah. But I will say the kids were pretty good about being like, why do I have 2 tests in Synergy? Like if I ever forgot to do that. So I also did, like, if you were modifying something and the points of the assignment were the same, like maybe the actual assignment was different, but it was still, you know, a 40-point test, I still only put it in as one assignment in Schoology and then in Synergy. So, you know, it was only one category, but the actual version they got were different. So you know, if one kid's test was worth 40 points and another was 20 points, then obviously they had to be 2 different ones and I had to do that. But if the actual points of the assignment were the same value, I just kept it as one.
But you do most of yours
on allowed or not, but that's what I did last year.
You do most of yours on paper.
Yeah, I did most of mine on paper. Yeah.
So where I have 2 different assignments in Schoology for my 2 different groups, it carries over as 2 different assignments in Synergy.
Because if you're testing in Schoology.
The one other thing I'll just bring up, because you said something that just triggered this memory, was reassessment. And maybe you all are doing it, but I worked with some teachers at Freedom where they made another assignment and they're like, oh no, I don't want to do that. Like, it depends on what you're doing with the assignment, right? Is it, you know, I think the best way that I've heard from teachers, you tell me, is they give the kid a score. Maybe it was like a 5 out of 10 or whatever, maybe a bigger score because that sounds formative. But then the kid retakes it. The score, you put the new score in, but then you would put the original score in the comments, like for you to see it really quickly. They have enabled the score history in Synergy, and you can check it out. When you go to Synergy, you click into the assignment.
Or you just click on the score cell. I think it'll show the history available.
Right. And that was not enabled at the beginning of the year.
It was
they
February.
told us it would be too much to keep all of that. Like, it was kind of crazy. So yeah, in Synergy, you would be able to go in and see it, but in Schoology, you know, putting it in as a comment.
Is it just us able to see that score history, or do the kids and parents see that?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't know. I would think it's just for us, but yeah, we'll have to check it out.
So Yvonne, another route that I had done when I did the reassessments in my health class. So I had I made a separate column as a grade for those that did the reassessment, and then that reassessment would show up as that grade, and then I would exempt the original grade on that first summative. So therefore, it would not calculate that first summative, but it would calculate that one that was individually assigned to that kid that chose to do the reassessment. So it didn't impact the other 30 kids in the class. It was just those that wanted to do the reassessment, if that makes sense.
No, that
I'll add to that.
Yeah, I like hearing all these different ways, like, and it's like your workflow, what makes sense for you. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Those that know me know that nothing makes sense. So
Mike, can you explain that?
Yeah.
You did you added a column, like a grading column?
Yeah, so I did all my assessments were all on Schoology, right? So I would individually assign like a reassessment to their nutrition unit, right? I would then assign it to that one student. On that original assessment, I would exempt that score from the original one, and it would just calculate that next one for that kid.
So when you so you created the new assignment and individually assigned it to only the student or students who needed to reassess.
Correct.
And then did you then check the show only one scored to the new one so that it wouldn't show up for all the other students in their Synergy student view?
Yes. So I didn't have any issues with the grades syncing over. It will only show for those ones that were assigned that assignment. Am I answering your question?
Yeah, but so you created a new assignment in Schoology, right? A new test, and then you individually assigned it because you can individually assign a Schoology. But when you sync, it should show up for all students. Like just because it was individually assigned in Schoology, it would still show up for all students in Synergy. So then that's why we would check that show only when scored, and then the new assignment would only show up for the student who had a score.
Yeah. So for example, with our health class, it's all like different levels of kids, right? So we differentiate everything within the class. So I have different summative assessments for each kid, right? Or for like each grouping of kids. So it would show up on, like, when I print the grade report out, you would just say like our advanced level test, you would see the other two options that were there, but they would be blank for you and you wouldn't have any score there at all. So I just told the kids that when I print off their progress report, if there's no percentage there, then you're good. Those weren't assigned to you specifically.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. No. That now I understand. So the parents weren't worried about. They knew the expectation that they would see multiple, and the one that was scored was the only one they should worry about. Okay.
Yeah, I would put that in the header or the footer within that grade report itself.
Nice. So I did something kind of similar. Like a lot of my reassessments were done using quizzes. Now what is it, Wayground or whatever it's called?
Yeah.
Okay. But I didn't like having like 3 or 4 of them in my gradebook because it extended my gradebook so much. So once I would assign any kid that was reassessing or taking it, once they had their score, I would go into the original assignment and I'd put a comment in there and I would say original test score was 10 out of 20, student reassessed on this date, and they got an updated score of this, and that's what then I would change your score to. So it was, and then I deleted the one that they did their actual assessment on because I didn't want to see all of them. They just really ultimately needed the score of what they were reassessing on. So I left it in the original column with a gradebook comment of when they reassessed and what their original score was and what it changed to.
So you just didn't want to see as many columns, Lisa. That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
That makes sense. I got you.
And the nice thing about Wayground is the student could still log into Wayground and look at their assessment, and if they wanted to see which questions they got wrong, or like it didn't matter if you deleted that in Schoology.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're over time. I just want to let everybody know that please take off if you need to, but please stick around. If you want to keep on talking, by all means. I'm going to turn off the recording.
All right. Yeah. And